our vision for our firm is to have the biggest impact on the world that we can. And we want to do that through taking individuals that are in financial situations that they find themselves in where they kind of have a victim mindset and show them, the path to being empowered through that.
All right. You're listening to the Successful Mind Podcast.
Successful people learn how to make their minds work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. Bryce, man, it's great to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me. This is just amazing to be back. So
Yeah. Awesome. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So just so everybody that's listening to this knows, tell everybody what you do.
So I'm an attorney and I own a law firm, and we specialize in helping people that have found themselves victims of financial abuse primarily. And we help them through a variety of different ways in a lot of different industries. But we don't represent any businesses or corporations. It's only individual people that are going through struggles with bullies, people that are pushing them around. So,
what's the name of the law firm?
It's Bell Law LLC.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? Like, we've been in a business relationship for 7 years now, and you've done so many amazing things, but I'd like to take it all the way back to the beginning. What was your life like, and what was your business like before we started working together?
So I think the most vivid snapshot would be about 10 years ago. And, really, I wanted to quit the practice of law, to be honest with you. I had my own firm, but there was no employees, and I was not in a practice area doing work that I really love to do. And I think it was through actually working with, one of your people that you've worked with, Arjan, who now owns How to Manage a Small Law Firm.
Yeah.
And that is kind of back in 2013, what kind of started the trajectory towards, I think sometimes when people get frustrated, it's, there's something deeper inside of you, but you don't have any idea how to get it out of you. And I think from a be more, do more, have more perspective, right? Yeah, 100%, just being able to live a life, that not only with financial freedom, which you teach people, but just to be able to express yourself as a human being the way you naturally are, authentically. And so I if you want to take it all the way back, I think, let's start 10 years, which is about 10 years after I had graduated from law school.
Okay.
And
was there anything specific that was happening during that time that was causing you to feel like you knew that there was more there?
I think there was a lot of different things. I don't know if there was just one thing. I think sometimes you start on a path and you're not really sure how you got there. You end up at a point in your life, and I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, I'm miserable. I mean, I don't enjoy life. There's really nothing, that I really authentically, truly love experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And you want to escape, right? When you've built something like that for yourself. And, but I have the desire, to do something greater. And that's where, but you don't know how. You don't know. Like if looking back on the path right now, I mean, there's so many twists and turns of how we got here. I mean, you can never predict that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you're saying that I find interesting, and this happened with me, although I will admit I was a little bit younger, but I've been in business for 24 years, helping people build businesses and really live their dream. And with everybody I've ever worked with, they start off with they've got information all of their life on how to be successful in kind of like a normal way, like how they've been set up going to school or church or their parents or whatever. And they come out with a set of rules and a viewpoint on how to see the world, and they start really going after it. And then at some point, like you mentioned, something in their mind goes, something's not right here, right? They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. They're not making enough, the amount of money that they want to make. They can't see how to go further. They may be looking at the people that they're working with and going, this is not the crew that I really want to jive with. And yet there's this idea in their mind. And I know this for me because this is what I was told. Like, you just kind of have to shut up and deal with it, right? Because that's what life is. You're expecting too much out of what's going on. And that's a weird place to wake up one day and see yourself in that. So when you started to realize that, how long was it from the time you started to realize until you actually started looking to do something about it?
I would say at least, I mean, it had been going on for a while. I mean, this was nothing new. I would say within 2 or 3 years of coming out of law school, something's not right. Like, I'm not in a position where, I'm being myself, where I feel like I can really be here to fulfill, my life's purpose. And then, what really kind of led to, I would say, the first big breakthrough. And you had actually mentioned this a couple of days ago, I think, when you went to a similar event, but I'll never forget the first time when I walked into a quarterly meeting with, how to manage a small law firm. And I saw people getting up to a microphone talking about how they ran a law firm that was making more than $1 million a year. I mean, my mind would, and there was all this positivity, all these people that were just doing these amazing things. And it literally blew just the fact that I thought it was possible at that time, and because it was like a peer was reflecting that back to you. Yeah. Because you hear about it, you talk about it, but if the people you're surrounding yourself with, aren't at that level, it's just an intellectual exercise. But then when you actually see it, your mind can't argue with reality. Right. Then it starts to say, well, you can't do it. Maybe it starts to twist it a little bit. But once you see that, I think, it just completely changes everything, Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we met about 7 years ago, and you mentioned Arjan, who has How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And I think it was, 15 years ago that Arjan came to me and I started helping him build his business. So I know the environment that he creates really well. What was it that made you think or decide that you wanted to work for me? What was it like actually making the decision to do that? I just remember Arjan saying, if you want to understand how your mind works, because it's like a record, you get these grooves and it goes over and over and over again. I still remember when I got up, when he described that workshop, that you can learn how that worked and how to change it. I'll never forget hearing that, getting up and walking to the back of the room and signing up for that. And yeah, I mean, if you look at, and that was a point where I was kind of just starting, your growth. And when you just start, it's kind of like, a rocket leaving Earth's orbit. It takes a lot of force, to be able to get past, that initial layer. So you can start, really, really doing some fun things. Yeah. And, I mean, it was $7,500. And at the time, that was a lot of money, but I also knew that. And that was the event that we did for Arjan, the one in Charlotte, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was really cool. Should we talk about that or? Yeah. Well, all right. So let me ask you another question. So when you came to that, did you have something specific you were wanting to learn or fix or change that you knew at the time? Or were you just looking to see what is this mindset stuff about and, what could happen? What was your thought going into it, really? It's an interesting question. I think it was more just the mindset in general, just learning how our minds work. And I don't remember there being one specific thing. I just knew that was like the next right step for me. It was just kind of an intuitive thing. And I knew that it was going to be a challenge, for me to go through with that, not only for the money, because it was an investment in myself to say that I'm worth it and we're going to go through and we're going to try and see what happens. But, you don't know what's on the other side when you say yes to something and your mind tries to, scare you and get you to turn around. So there was a lot of fear.
Well, you said something really significant. You said, I'm worth it. And one of the interesting things about people that find themselves in a stuck situation is very often they're presented with maybe different options for answers to whatever their problem is that they have in life. And then they see what it's going to cost them, whether it's time or money or whatever. And they go, it's going to cost me how much to change this or to get this result? And they're not thinking about it from the perspective of that I deserve this, that I deserve the best for me or whatever it is that I need to become the best me that I can become. And they have that reflection point of money or time, or maybe there's somebody in their family that's against them, spending time or money doing that. And that barrier becomes the thing that they can't get past in order to start moving them to the next level. They have the same kind of thought process that you did. They know something's not right. Yeah. They're tired of, beating it every day. They're not, they know. I'll never forget when I realized that there was no way I would ever make the amount of money that I wanted to make working in the job that I was in. I don't know why I didn't know that earlier when I first went to work, when I came out of school and actually got a job. Mm-hmm. But one day it was just like, oh, there's no way that this will ever happen doing this. You're going to have to find something else to do, figure something else out to do that. Yeah. So those are those kind of turning points where are you open to what the universe sends you, right? To go into it. Yeah. And just like you said, it was scary for you. It was scary for me also.
Yeah. You're going to have to give something up,
Yeah. There's a law. The law of sacrifice says in order to gain anything of a higher nature in your life, you have to be willing to let go of something from a lower nature. All successful people have the same 24 hours every day. And they have the same availability to resources as anybody else does. They just know what to do with it in a different way to maximize whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me tell you a story, David. So, and where I got this idea for $1 million, I don't know, maybe it's, just something we all kind of think about if we could do that in a year. But I remember being with my dad at the casino. I don't know when, this probably 12 years ago or so. And, I told him I want to make $1 million someday. And he says, well, how are you going to do that? He said, that's $83,333.33 a year. And I was like, oh, well, you thought about it.
A month. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, well, you thought about it too then, because he had the idea, but he didn't know, we're not taught how to do it. And that's what ends up, stopping us from moving forward. And I don't know. It's
well, that's the same thing that my parents would say to me. Yeah. My whole childhood, if I came up with something, they would say, how are you going to do that? And I had no idea. So that was the end of that, right? Which was weird because when I first found myself in trouble financially when I was younger in my 20s, I was trying to figure out a way to get out of it. And I'm sitting, so the problem was more than just money problem. It was a problem with the family and where we were stuck and the bad decisions that I had made. And I was only trying to fix the money part. I had no idea how to solve these problems of life from any other perspective. And I think it came from the idea that not only did I get that repeated back to me, how are you going to do that? But nobody ever said, here's how you solve these problems. Here's what you do. And because I think they didn't know how either. They're great people, but they can only give you the best that they have. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and did they ever explore how?
Not to my knowledge.
And it's the same here. It's like, but why not? Something's out there, but at some point you stop, right?
Yeah. I think my family had so many negative beliefs around wealth that they couldn't get past those in order to actually get to a place where it was feasible in their mind as a possibility.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because I think it's different for everyone. I think some people, I was telling you about my father, and I think he just tapped out on his income and just said, This is all I'm worth,
I always got the impression that my family thought that there was really something different about really wealthy or successful people versus who we were. And because they didn't know exactly what that was, they automatically assumed, well, whatever it is, it's not me, right? So I can't do it. And I do remember hearing you got to be really smart, or you have to have money, or you have to know people, or a bunch of them are crooked. I used to hear that a lot, especially from my grandparents. So I knew, reflecting back, I knew that there were things in there that if you were really thinking about it, if that's all the information you had and you were really just watching it from the outside, it might not let you get close enough to the desire inside to actually think about, well, I don't want to have to kill myself to do it. Money won't make you happy. I don't want to be dishonest to make money. So it's like, okay, what's the best I can do with what I have?
Yeah. It becomes this artificial barrier where you just never even get past the point of asking the question.
You've worked together for a long time.
That's fascinating.
A lot has been done. Sure. You've worked on a tremendous amount, tons of change going on. What's a memorable high point that you have during this process?
There's a lot, but let me give you one from a couple of years ago. Back in 2017, ironically, right when we first started working together, we took on a housing case that involved some individuals that were just living in really horrific all kinds of mold, water leakage, bed bugs, like just whatever you can imagine as being kind of the worst case scenario for that. And we had never done a case like that with our firm before, but I listened to what they said and I said, we can't turn this person away. We have to help. And, 4 years later in 2021, we not only received over $2.5 million settlement, entirety for everyone that was a part of that case, but we also forced the sale of the building, and they did a $10 million renovation for the entire building. And so the living conditions that we were, trying to get fixed got fixed. And then we also got, some relief for the tenants, which is, it's just really cool to not only, there's that piece of it, the monetary piece, and like what you're doing for the living conditions. But I think a lot of people don't have others in their life that stand up for them and show them that people are out there that will stand up for them. And so, one of the things that we like to do in our firm, it's not just, we're solving their legal problem, but we're also showing them that, there's hope out there, that they don't have to be victims in their own life, that they can be empowered, to create something else. And I hope, the people that we work with, the people that we touch in the community, just whoever, that if they can just see that, that's something that you can't measure, in terms of the settlement. So both in terms of what we accomplished, with the monetary piece of it, getting the building fixed, and then also, just being an example for the people in the building, it was a long journey with a lot of trials and tribulations, but we ultimately prevailed and found some great allies along the way, to do that. And, I don't know that I could have done it without you and, the mindset and all the things, that you teach.
Well, what would be, ask yourself this, or let's just address this question. Can you think of one significant change that you made in yourself that allowed you to have such a success with this case?
That's an interesting question.
Like, I couldn't have done it without making this change.
I think that was the road to really understanding what faith is, and not really knowing that at the time, but now I can kind of look back and connect the dots and look at all the things that happened. And, you talk about the hero's journey, going through that process and coming through, to the end when, there were so many times where I don't know what's going to happen, here, and being able to have that confidence to persevere through no matter what happens. And I think, what you teach that to me is the most valuable thing is your peace of mind and your ability to handle and deal with problems as they come up, in a rational, calm manner, without reacting and having your emotional brain, hijack whatever's going on with the situation. Because you talk about the truth, what is the truth in this, and that's such an amazing gift, when you can get there.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's a great kind of a segue there. So having said that, what would be the opposite? What would be a low point that you experienced during this transformation? Maybe something that was hard for you, something difficult to change.
I think that there's probably, let me give you two. The first one, I think, was really starting to own the fact that I was in control of my own life. And even though there were emotions and things that would happen, I have to be the one to learn how to master those things, and being able to get myself to do what I need to do every day in order to accomplish my goals and the firm goals and whatever we're trying to achieve. And I think, Steph, worked me through a lot of that process. Yeah. And it was just kind of dealing with, that core wound, which was one of the fundamental things that you taught, that we, as human beings all deal with is, I'm not worthy, and, I'm not lovable, and I'm not enough, just those kind of core things, and really starting to get to the other side of that. And there were some dark times in there, because that part of you doesn't necessarily want to be confronted. And that's not an easy process.
Right.
The second one I would say would be during COVID, the first three or 4 months, when that happened. And, it was just crazy, what was, you can look back now and just say, for a year we were working from home, and doing Zoom stuff, and and just in terms of your mental health, in terms of dealing, trying to run a business and trying to, go through all those things, and
with a tremendous amount of fear and uncertainty coming from the outside world at the same time.
And that was when you started you did a special series, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it.
How to manage uncertainty during a crisis or something like that.
And in some ways it was a low point, but I'm glad that it happened, because it's made me so much more mentally tough to know that, hey, that happened and I can get through it. And you know what? It's probably not the last time something like that is going to happen in our lifetimes.
Right. Right.
So, but sometimes
it took a lot of people out, man. It really did. It's and that was one of the reasons why we ran that program, because when COVID happened, I remember thinking to myself, this has the potential to destabilize the entire world, locking people up, especially, in the being stuck at home, and the disruption of the flow of goods and services throughout the United States and, on the globe. We all have this kind of intrinsic, internally programmed pattern of how everything in the world flows. And this was going to disrupt it. And I thought, people are not going to know what to do with the anxiety of that. And then because of that, they're not going to be productive. So we had thousands of people that listened in on those calls that I did during that time frame. And really the whole idea was, okay, look, we got this crazy thing that would happen. I know that I need to figure out a way to get through this. How do I need to think every day in order to be able to get through it, take care of my family, take care of my business, take care of my health? How do I need to really focus on getting through this time? It was, it was. I'm glad I know it was tough, but you did a great job.
Yeah. And thank you, for you and your team, because, that's part of the reason why I love doing business with you, because, you're such a great example for, everyone else out there, And so when something bad happens, what do? Our instinct sometimes is to look internal, protect yourself, but you did the opposite. You said, how can I help people? And you spread that message and, think about how many, people's lives and businesses were impacted, if you hadn't have been there, sharing that positive message. So,
Yeah. And it was rough for me too. I mean, it wasn't all smooth sailing through there, but getting through those rough times and being able to come out the other side, that's really what's important, because we're always going to have that. Like you said, it's going to happen again in one way or another. We're always going to have the ups and we're going to have the downs.
Yeah. And I think it makes you appreciate how fragile, human life is.
Very.
And what we're doing. We have this.
And human consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've really, that's become a very stark realization over the last 3 years, the psyche of us as people. And it's a mess out there right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it doesn't take, even if you're working on it every day, sometimes it doesn't take much to get you off center. And
no, it doesn't.
You have other, just the general public who isn't necessarily, maybe they're watching the news and kind of being led to that direction, which is just, it's tough because I think if people stop watching the news, what a positive impact that would have on our consciousness. Completely.
Because it's all, one of the things that we talk about when we're helping people with the correct mindset is either eliminate or extremely limit your exposure to the news and any kind of form of media coming in, because they have to remember, number one, it's a business and the business operates by eyeballs, right? They have to get attention in order to make money because they make money from whoever the advertisers are. And what's interesting about that is that the fastest way to get people's attention is to scare the hell out of them, right? So they just pump fear and manipulation in order to be able to get that attention. And we've just had way too much of it the last 3 years. People get addicted to it. And once that happens, they can put any message in there that they want and people believe it because they're afraid. And the number one thing a person's trying to get to at that moment is, how do I feel safe and secure on the inside? Well, I've lost my bearing on certainty. How do I find that? Mm-hmm. So staying out of it to begin with is that's great right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, for sure.
If nothing else.
So tell me something big that you've accomplished lately.
Well, let me give you one personal and one business. So in business this year, we're going to finally cross the 7-figure barrier for the first time.
Nice. That's awesome.
And, so it's great, but what's even better is we're laying a much stronger foundation, for the future to keep that repeating. And, to have it be easy and effortless. And part of that is, we hired a really amazing COO who has done a tremendous job in kind of complementing the things, that I don't really do well.
Right.
And, part of, and she actually went to the CEO Solutions program, that you guys offered. And, that was amazing to work together through her, through that program with her, to try to kind of like figure out where we're going to match and meet together. And that's just allowed me so much more freedom in the business and my life,
for sure,
to be able to do what I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, a personal thing is last year, about a year ago, we, a friend and I went to Africa and we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And, that was a really interesting, fun, just an amazing experience, wonderful people. And, let me tell you a quick story about that. So, and this is how I think sometimes your mind really messes with you. I had won the trip at an auction, asked my friend to go. And this was a conscious decision, to go over and to try to do this,
sure.
But 3 or 4 days, it's an 8-day hike to the top, and 3 or 4 days.
What's the elevation up there?
It's almost 20,000 feet. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. I didn't know. So I want.
Yeah, it's a little under 20. And, but it's an 8-day hike, 3 or 4 days in. There's a lot of things that are uncomfortable. It's 30 degrees when you wake up in the morning. You're in a different environment, a foreign language, the food's different. And I catch myself saying, why am I doing this? Why am I not on a beach, drinking a margarita? And then I remembered I made this decision. I wanted to do this.
Yeah. And
once we take ownership of those choices that we make and fully commit and go through, everything else for the rest of the trip was amazing. Of course, my friend got sick and I was able to help him through it, and he made it to the top, which was amazing. But, it's you wouldn't think that those things are related. But once you start seeing that, hey, this stuff applies to everything, how you show up in everything in your life. So that was cool, and that little mindset thing made, all the difference in enjoying that experience with everyone.
That's a hell of an achievement. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah, I bet it really was. Cool. What's the next big vision? Where are you going now? What's the future look like?
That's a great question. Our vision for our firm is to have the biggest impact on the world that we can. And we want to do that through taking individuals that are in financial situations that they find themselves in, where they kind of have a victim mindset, and show them, the path to being empowered through that. So, we have goals of, hitting $10 million for the firm and doubling revenue next year. And, just having a lot of fun, because sometimes it's like, we do this business, we take it so seriously, and, of course we want to succeed, but at the end of the day, like, if we're not having fun, is any of it really worth it?
That's right. It isn't to me. Well, to me, it's not.
Yeah.
Right. The money's, and people, I think a lot of people don't understand this. There's almost as if there's this switch in your mind that where you go, when I get to this 7-figure level or somewhere around there, that something is significant is going to change. And with all the people that I've helped get past that level, they all say the same thing. It's not what I thought it was. Right. And I'll go, well, tell me what you thought it was going to be. And they go, I can't put my finger on it, but it feels like something's missing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are you happy? Right. Do you feel fulfilled on the inside? Yeah. And it's almost as if they're so focused on, let me just get to this place and I'll figure everything out later. And then they get there and they go, it really doesn't solve anything. I mean, my problems are much easier to deal with. Absolutely no question about that. But then the next thing I hear is, I need to make my life happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can do that along the way if you're conscious about it. But, if what you said about, I just have to get to this point and then I'll be happy. It just, unfortunately, that never really happens unless you're just kind of having that daily maintenance.
Right. Well, being happy is a decision, but making your life happy is a skill. Yeah. Right. There's so many pieces that are involved in that where you're dealing with other people. It's really learning a skill to be able to do that.
That's a great point. I never heard you say that before.
Cool. Well, it's really great that you came down to do this. I really appreciate it.
This has been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
You bet.
Everything. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind Podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, go to lifeisnowinc.com. I'll see you next week.